Hi, everybody. I am back. Ignore him. Ignore him. He came back. He came crawling back. But I've told him just to be quiet, just to sit there and listen. I'm not going to play today. I'm really busy. There's a bunch of stuff. I have some interviews and stuff I'm doing today and some things I have to fill out. And just no time to really bone up on anything interesting. So I'm just going to take a break. But what I want to do with my time today is I want to talk about Jeff Porcaro. Jeff was probably one of the most consummate musicians I ever worked with. Jeff and I probably did several hundred albums together, ranging from Richard Marx to Art Garfunkel to Marvin Hamlish to, you kind of name it, Warren Zevon. I've saved all my old date books going back to 1970. And during kind of the heyday of studio work, when Jeff came into the scene, many of my sessions that are marked down in the book just say Jeff. I really didn't care who the artist was or anything. If Jeff was going to be on the date, I knew I was going to be having a good time, and I did. I love Jeff dearly. I could not have loved a brother more than I love Jeff, and he comes from a remarkable lineage. Joe Porcaro, his father, is still a playing musician in town. He was always one of the major percussion drummers in town. He and Emil Richards were an amazing team together. And if you're not familiar with Jeff, just pull up Wikipedia and look at an astounding history. I always tell people he was one of the bravest musicians I've ever known, and people always kind of question, what do you mean by brave? And what I mean by brave is he so went with his gut instincts on things. He really played by his heart and his soul. I remember doing I think it was a David Crosby record with him, and there was one song we came to, and all drummers I know would have just during the song would have just put down a beat, just played it, straight up like everybody would do. And Jeff was sitting there and he listened to it, and when it went by, he just took out his brushes and was doing things like with the overheads, textures and colors, and touched a few things. It was so minimal, yet we went in and listened to the playback and it was perfect. It was exactly what the song wanted. That's what I mean by brave. He just went with his guts, and generally his guts were right. He was the consummate professional from the standpoint. He would always be early, set up, ready to go. And I always look at players when I talk to them about, like when I do clinics or a master class, I say, if it's a 10 a.m. downbeat for a session, 10:15 isn't when you're pulling in the parking lot. 10 a.m., you've already gotten there, you've got all your gear dialed in, and you are in place ready to play at 10 o'clock. Now, the artist or the producer may not show up for an hour. That's their prerogative. It's their bill. But if your clock starts at 10, you are ready to play at 10. That's one of the things I always loved about doing film, when you're doing on a big scoring stage, and it's an 8 a.m. call for like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that. You are in place ready to record at 8, because by 8:05, they're going to want to start hearing a mix. So you don't have the luxury of being lazy about these things. And Jeff was far from it. Jeff was always there on time, ready to go. He'd already, if there were charts out, he'd already dialed in what he was looking at, and we'll go through the charts just to check, see if there's anything that's needs some looking to before you actually start up. There's so many times I've opened charts up and you kind of take a deep breath and you go, holy crap. I'll show you one. I'll tell you about one of those another time. That was amazing. But Jeff was a remarkable human being and a remarkable musician. His brother Mike was a wonderful, wonderful bassist. And his brother Steve is an incredible keyboard player, composer. And the reason I ended up working with Toto was because it was Mike's request, where he was suffering from ALS, and it got to the point where he could no longer play. His muscles were just giving out. And they contacted me and asked me if I could finish the tour for him. And it was a double-edged sword. I'd known the guys forever, and I knew them when they were forming Toto. So on the one hand, the opportunity to play with Toto was thrilling to me because I love the guys, I love their music. They were one of the best bands ever. But the reason I was going there depressed the shit out of me. There's nothing I would have liked more than Mike to, call me, one day during the tour and say, "I'm feeling better now. I'm coming back." I would say, "Man, I would geek your gear for you. I'd be your roadie if you want," just to know that he was well enough to play again. But it just wasn't to be. But for a while, I started just talking to guys in town, asking them to reflect their memories of Jeff. Bill Schnee, who's one of the great engineers and producers. I talked to Bill. We did a lot of records with Jeff together with Bill. I talked to, it really started with Jim Keltner. Jeff just loved Jim. It was his favorite drummer. And there were times with Jeff on sessions where he would say, "I'm not really the right guy for this thing. I'm going to call Jim and have him come down and play it." And he would get Jim to come down there, and it would be like this party. They'd hang. But Jim Jim is and still is a remarkable drummer. Any of these people, go to Wikipedia and get your mind blown by what these people have accomplished. John Robinson, JR. I talked to JR. I did a lot of work in France, especially, and in England with Neil Wilkinson, who's a fabulous drummer. I did years with Véronique Sanson in France, and Neil was the drummer on those dates, and he's a treasure to play with. Greg Bissonette. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of Greg. I talked to Greg and John Ferraro and Kurt Biscara, Kirky B. So what I'm going to do is when I finish this video, I'll post this explanation, but then I'm going to put up all these little posts of just the reflections that each of these guys gave me on film about Jeff. And I think it's worth revisiting Jeff Porcaro's legacy. He died way too young, and the thought of what he could be accomplishing at this point is mind-boggling, because he accomplished so much in the short life that he had. Even though he started really young, it's never long enough if you're in your 30s and you're gone. But and I remember when I heard that he had passed, I was just flying home from I was doing a European tour with Tracy Chapman, and when I landed back in LA, I got the news that Jeff had died, and it was like somebody taking a baseball bat and you're not paying attention and they do a full swing right into your stomach. I've never felt so sick and so terrible in my life as finding out that Jeff was gone. And it was a terrible period because we lost Jeff and we lost Carlos Vega, who was another unbelievably fabulous drummer and human being, and Larry London, who was also a great one. I was going through that period wondering, why even go on? I'm losing like the guys that I work with all the time. It was really a tragic period. But thank God for recordings, because the legacy that these guys have all left behind is for generations to come. So I'll play tomorrow, but I really just wanted to get this thing out about Jeff. I think it's really important. We are a remarkable community of players. And the sense of loss when one goes is really quite astounding. And the sense of respect and love that we have within the community is something that I treasure dearly. Like, I get asked all the time about different things about, my place and all. And I always tell people, I said, look, I am just happy to be a member of this community. It is an absolutely unique group of individuals that record and tour. There's nobody quite like them. And if you've never done it, you don't understand what the camaraderie and the focus is within it towards each other. So, I'm going to give my shout out today, like I normally do. But the one group that I was thinking about it, and I go, I can't believe I haven't really mentioned it. And my niece and her husband are both teachers. What teachers are going through during this period is quite astounding. My niece is homeschooling her kids, but she's also got full curriculum going with all of her students. Her husband is doing the same thing. And the amount of responsibility that they're feeling towards all these kids that are sitting at home trying to do their lessons is something so commendable, because this really is the future of our world, is education, is people being smart enough to navigate through all of this. And teachers, to me, I look at teachers and nurses and stuff, and I just go, you are remarkable, remarkable people. So my shout out today is absolutely to teachers and all you're doing to try to keep your students in the loop and afloat through this period that for them has got to be so surreal, because they have no idea where this came from. We can intellectualize disease and history and all that, but you're looking at young kids and they're just going, why can't I go out and play? Why can't I see my friends? So it's a very, very hard period. So my heart and my love goes out to all of them and everybody else who's working so hard. So you guys take good care of yourselves out there. I will be back tomorrow, and I'll find a song, maybe a Zevon tune or one of our immediate family. I keep looking at all these songs, and some of them I think, yeah, I really want to do that, but I've really got to take a little time and bone up on it, because it ain't like riding a bicycle. You don't just get on it and start pedaling. A lot of these songs that I've worked on really were complicated in the studio back when we did them, and to be trying to relive them now under the circumstances of this ridiculous mix that I play to, and trying to play it all for memory, because I haven't put together any charts for anything. I'll talk about charts on another one too. But you take good care of yourselves. So following this video, there's going to be about 5 or 6, maybe, I forget how many of these I've got. I'm going to post these little videos of guys talking about Jeff Porcaro, and just ignore him. He'll go away again. It's an attention getter. He went out, got a perm just so he'd think he was cool, but not really cool. So I will see you tomorrow.